Welcome to Medicine Redefined, a podcast focusing on helping you reclaim ownership of your health. I'm Dr. Darsha.
And I'm Dr. Ultimash Raja. We're your hosts, here to challenge conventional practices and uncover the stories behind pioneers shaping the future of medicine. Our conversations not only focus on the individual level to dissect common practices for health optimization, but also zoom out to enhance systemic change.
Join us as we look to break the status quo, move the needle forward, and put the health back in healthcare. All right, Matt, thank you so much for coming on to this show. You know, anytime Ultimash and I have the chance to talk precision medicine and integrate that with cardiometabolic health, it makes us happy. You know, it makes us curious. It makes us want to learn more. And that's your field. And that's kind of, topics of the future as well. But I think it's important to have that discussion now, which is exactly what we're going to get into. But first, why don't we start with your background and your journey? You know, just to let the audience know, you're not a clinician, right? You're not a physician, but yet you are involved in this world of precision medicine. So let's talk about your journey and kind of how you came to it.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me on. My background, honestly, I was an Army officer for 9 years. Definitely not healthcare related. I was an infantry officer, so the thing you think about when you think about someone in the Army walking around in the woods with a rifle, that was what I did. Did that for 9 years. Ended up at a company called TrialCard. TrialCard is most famous for the copay cards or the discount cards that offset your copay at the pharmacy counter. And again, not an area I ever thought I would get involved in after the Army, but it gave me a taste of what it's like to help people access better healthcare and bring digital solutions into that field. After about 11 years at TrialCard, really enjoyed it, learned a ton, but I always had this knack for, I want to do something on my own, go, build a company, grow it, all the pains, trials, and tribulations that come with that. And somewhat untimely, but fortuitous at the same time, my mother-in-law had a heart attack and died suddenly in 2016. And we understood her to be rather healthy. She walked 4 miles a day before, but had a sudden heart attack and died. And that kind of stuck in my head of like, wait a minute, how did someone healthy pass away? At the same time, during those 11 years of that fast-growing startup, I had gained weight, kind of took my 30s off, I would say. You start coming into work early, you start leaving late, you have lunches brought in, have a few beers on the way home, have a few on Saturday. Next thing you know, you're 40 years old and overweight. So I was one of those undiagnosed pre-diabetics out there floating around. So that combination of, my mother-in-law's, health issue, fatal health issue, and then my own health kind of being out of whack, it really led me to start taking control of my own health. So I started learning about diet, started learning about exercise, and actually use a ketogenic diet for about a year to really cut weight. Mm-hmm. Got myself taken care of, and then got to the point where I met my co-founder with Precision Health Reports, and I'll give that longer story of that when later on here.
Yeah, sure thing. No, thank you for that introduction. I think it definitely puts some context, as far as there's a personal story that gets you really involved when it comes to cardiometabolic health. I think it's a good point to kind of talk about what precision medicine is. It's something that I'm definitely interested in practicing in. And when, other attendings or residents ask me, what do you plan on doing? Are you doing a fellowship? Are you not? One of the things I say is I'm interested in doing precision and performance medicine. And then I get, what the heck is that? So how would you, in your words, describe what precision medicine means?
Yeah, I think precision medicine really involves helping an individual identify where they are and meeting them where they are. Some people are not going to be ready for what you as a clinician are going to tell them, ready to make the changes necessary, whether it be dietary, lifestyle, or medical intervention. But it's identifying what's going on with them. Really bringing the topic down to their clinical history, their age, their gender, their ethnicity, other things that may be going on that are causing, whatever health issues they have, and really enable that conversation to drive someone into a position, bring someone into a position that allows them to make the best choices for their personal health goals and improve their health span.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, for those listening saying, okay, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about precision medicine? Are we talking about cardiometabolic health? And the answer is we can't do one without the other, right? We've talked at length before about how, at least in the developed world, that cardiac related diseases are the number one killer, right? Chronic illnesses, and especially metabolic health as well, right? They go hand in hand. And particularly what you guys are doing, which we'll expand on a little bit further, is really assessing an individual's risk compared to themselves, right? An N of one, which is kind of how I look at precision medicine. I think it's so important to know the guidelines, to know what a population-based risk is. And, that's the strength of the literature, the evidence that we look at, that we often use to cite and formulate guidelines. But then the person in front of you, they have a very personal story. They have a unique story. They have limitations. They have expectations. They have goals. Kind of what you touched on is, how do you meet them where they at? Learn about everything that's unique to them. Keep the population studies, the data that's come from the masses in the back of your mind, but only use them as kind of those, what do you call them when you go bowling, like those things at the end, or there's like bumper lanes? What are they called?
Yeah, I think so. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, use them as bumpers. There you go. See, I'm just so good. I never even have to use them. But use them as that, and then you're trying to be very, very precise in the plan that you ultimately create. And I think about a typical marker for cardiovascular disease, right? We talk about ASCVD, right? And for those who don't know or aren't familiar, like that's kind of your 10-year risk for major adverse cardiac events, right? And it really doesn't apply, I think, unless you're over age 60 or something like that, right? Is that, correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, we see in the pooled cohort equation, there's a lifetime risk for younger people. There's a 10-year risk for people who are 60, or for I believe it's 50 and older, or 40 and older. And then between there, you get both 10-year and lifetime risk in the typical pooled cohort equation.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before. Is like for people such as myself, Darce, right? We're in our, I think Darce might be really close to 30. I'm in my 30s. Like that's not applicable, right? So that's not really applicable, right? And when we think about cardiovascular disease, it starts well before that time frame, even your 30s, right? And so we have to be very, very proactive, right? Because whatever system that we have right now is not working. So maybe we should start with, because I think maybe some people, including myself, there are times when I'm listening and I'm like, well, you know what? It's really hard to do one patient at a time. The system's just not created for that. So I suppose the question for you, we always like to start with why, is, in your opinion, and maybe even from your perspective as a patient, as you were kind of reformatting your life, is why do you think it's so tough to do one patient at a time? What kind of feedback do you hear from other clinicians that you talk to, your partner? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, one patient at a time is hard because it takes time. Your average clinical visit in a primary care setting, with the research we've got shows it's about 14 and a half minutes. And that's not enough time to do it. One of the things that really excited me, partnering up with my co-founder, Dr. Bill Cromwell, we were introduced right before COVID. So right about the time COVID was kicking off, a mentor introduced us together and said, hey, I've got this lipidologist who has a solution to identify early risk for individuals to have type 2 diabetes, heart attacks, and strokes. So the first thing I did was jot down what is a lipidologist, and take my own notes there. But then once we talked, I realized what he was doing himself, and there was two other docs he was talking with, was he had a solution where he was going through collecting all the relevant patient, individual clinical history, using a precise set of outcome-proven biomarkers, and then bringing those things together to, talk with a patient about their personal risk, which is fantastic. That's a lipidologist being a subspecialty of, so it's pretty far down the road. Once you're talking to a lipidologist, you've seen a primary care doc. They've oftentimes punted you to either a cardiologist or an endocrinologist, and they've punted you down to this lipidologist. So it's very, very hard to get a personalized conversation in that typical 14, 15-minute primary care setting. So, trying to do that one patient at a time is nearly impossible. I was fortunate to, have never had a major health issue and had to, get down to that level of care. But in your ordinary clinical visit, just the time isn't there to do all that you need to do as a primary care physician to talk to that person about their personal risk factors and identify and have that shared decision making about here's your risk factors. Let's figure out what you can and can't do, what you're willing to do to mitigate your risk going forward.
So the obvious solution for that is to give people more time. But the, the problem with that comes is that's not a very good business model, right? I mean, and that's the issue, right? I think that people don't like to talk about it as much, but healthcare it's a large business. That's right. It is the business of medicine that we don't learn enough about, and patients don't understand, and really very few people, if any, understand truly how the business of medicine is conducted. The other thing that some people might say, well, if we can't solve the time problem, maybe we need to figure out an efficiency problem, right? I think with the advent of AI, how much better that's getting, right? Everything. That's one of the reasons why I think a lot of things are protocolized, right? Because you just follow the protocol. You don't have to think and stuff, right? That has its own issues. We've talked about that. I think we've expressed our opinions on how that goes. Kind of loses the art of medicine. But I'm wondering if you've given thought to, if we can't solve the time problem, can we make the problem-solving aspect of it, particularly with respect to cardiometabolic health, can we make that more efficient? And if so, what are some tactics that come to your mind?
Yeah, well, that's exactly where we started with precision health reports. As I learned from Dr. Cromwell, he was doing this in his clinic, even as a highly seasoned lipidologist who understood all the details of the various complicated guidelines. It was still taking him 20, 30 minutes per patient to aggregate this stuff, to have that, to have the conversation necessary with that patient to talk with them. So what we have done together, and this was what I saw the same problem you saw. You can't add more time. So what can you do? You can take time out of unnecessary time out of the equation and use it better. So what we did was took that process he was doing, brought it into a system, and allow computers to do what computers do well. They do the same process over and over again, very efficiently, very quickly. So right now, the preclinical work for a physician to use the product we have in our Precision Health Reports business, it takes 30 seconds for a physician to order. First name, last name, email address, send. The patient gives us the relevant clinical history, and we were very precise in only asking questions that were necessary. So it's nice to know, it's necessary to know, are you on a statin or not? But it's nice to know which one are you on, what's the dose, are you taking it regularly, or are you not? But that's not required by the guidelines to bring that information together. So were you prescribed a statin? Yes. Okay, great. We move through the process. It's a few minutes for the patient to give us their relevant history. They have their biomarkers drawn by a phlebotomist, LabCorp phlebotomist, aggregate all that stuff together. And so and then into a common formatted report. And so a physician who uses our tool is able to pick the report up and go right into a conversation. So that 14.5-minute conversation that they have with their patient, they now have taken all the extra data aggregation, collection, read the guidelines, figure out which ones are relevant in your case versus his case, and have that meaningful conversation so they can talk about interventions that they have. So the art of medicine, we stay out of. We help with the identification of what the risk is, but the art of medicine, we stay hands off and leave that conversation between that patient and provider.
Yeah. It gets me thinking too, could one of the solutions be more clinic visits, right? If you're going to be stuck with time at 15 minutes, do we want to now go towards 2 to 3 visits per year? And especially when you're looking at precision medicine, how often are you recommending patients look at their markers after a certain intervention? I mean, obviously it's going to be clinician based, but what do you think?
So what we follow the guidelines, and what the guidelines typically recommend is, no more frequently than 3 or 4 months. Someone who's very high risk for metabolic syndrome, very high risk for diabetes, or very high risk for cardiovascular disease. The recommendation is, as a physician and for the individual to have that conversation and start doing potentially more aggressive steps. Those people who are in that higher tier of risk, 3 to 4 months is a good time for the body to adjust, see if those interventions are working, and then come back and test. If someone's moderate risk, maybe 6 months. Someone who's pretty good condition, maybe once a month, once a year, check in to make sure that that you're still on the right track. As you said earlier, ASCVD is a disease that starts early and it's partially undetectable for a long time. But if you can detect it at the earliest points, you're able to make those interventions that slow the process drastically.
So I think this is a good time to kind of talk about what the lab markers are included in precision health reports. But at the same time, is there a way that you can try to integrate it with maybe what cardiometabolic risk is and how we should be thinking about cardiometabolic risk? Because I think our listeners definitely understand the end results, the heart attacks, the strokes, death. And they probably understand the onset risk factors, cigarette smoking, the lifestyle factors that we always talk about on this podcast, poor sleep, poor diet, not moving enough. But what is that middle ground? Kind of where does that onset take you? The lab markers we should be looking at before the problem becomes a problem.
Right. So I'll start with what the biomarkers we use are, and then merge that into how that really informs risk. So the biomarker set we use from LabCorp is we use their NMR technology. My co-founder was one of the clinicians who helped build the NMR lipo profile that LabCorp now uses. So he's got a bias toward LabCorp, and that's good. He understands their science. He knows, that their NMR technology is sound. So we use an advanced lipid panel. So that's your typical lipids, your LDL cholesterol, your HDL, your total cholesterol, your triglycerides, as well as ApoB. Some docs like to use LDLP, and that's fine. We've got a solution for that. And then LPIR score comes along with that. So the lipoprotein insulin resistance score that measures how your lipoproteins are affecting insulin resistance better than fasting insulin and other ways to measure insulin. Lipoprotein A. So lipoprotein A being, I know in your podcast in the past, you've had lipoprotein discussions, which is fantastic. That's one of the things that most people don't know you need to measure at least once. And so lipoprotein A does get measured with us. Glyc-A, which is a biomarker, a multi-marker for measuring systemic inflammation. HbA1c, and fasting glucose. So all those things are brought together from a biomarker standpoint, but in each person, which levels of risk are inferred just by the numbers is irrelevant. Someone who has type 2 diabetes versus someone who has FH versus someone who has diabetes and FH. Your targets for those biomarkers are going to be different. And then you layer on top of that, someone who may have high ApoB, but they haven't, plaque hasn't started yet. So they don't have, their CAC score is 0. Their CIMT has not shown plaque has started. There's some dietary and lifestyle interventions that could happen quickly and start cutting that process off. Someone who has ASCVD, then you're talking about, bringing your ApoB down more drastically. And so part of what we do with this is collect the biomarkers, show where you are from a snapshot of current risk, and then apply those to your age, gender, ethnicity, has plaque started, and really give that clean picture about how does this number translate to your risk, not this number on a grand population scale.
I love that. So can you walk me through what it would look like on a first visit when somebody was to go to, let's just say, their lipidologist, their primary care doctor, whoever is using this technology, specifically your technology? Would they just send that person to LabCorp and put this on a script or place an order for precision health reports, or do they end up reaching out to you and you have designated labs throughout the country? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We built this really to take that thing a lipidologist is doing, again, move it upstream to that primary care. Allow primary care doctors to deliver an advanced tool in a primary care setting rather than someone, you know, having to get punted upstream several times. So we made the process very simple. A physician, if you're a physician and you're one of our clients, you would order this for a patient maybe a week or two before they're expected to come in. Um, they pop into our system. We're working on EHR integration right now, so make it a little easier, even easier in the workflow. Again, that first name, last name, email address, send. The patient receives an email that says, Dr. Darsh has ordered a cardiometabolic risk assessment for you. Click this link to create your account. We're going to ask you some questions. If you know ahead of time, if you've had a CAC score, if you know your current blood pressure, that speeds you through the process. And there's a series of questions. There's about 80 questions. Most people see 30 to 35. If you've never had imaging, we're not going to ask you what your imaging score was and how old you were. So it responds to the individual. They answer those questions. They receive a lab rec via email then to go to a LabCorp in the area for a fasted blood draw. So we wanted to make this easy to do where you are. Again, meeting the patient where they are, not requiring them to come back to the doc. You can, have dinner one night, go to bed, wake up the next morning, drop into a walk-in appointment at a LabCorp in your community on your way to work, have your blood drawn, go to work. And then we receive those labs in 3-ish days. The long end, maybe if you're in, greater, up in the Pacific Northwest, maybe 5 days. But all that blood gets sent to the NMR spectrometers in Burlington, North Carolina. We then receive those lab results in 3-ish days, integrate all that together, and then that individual and the doctor both get an email that says, Matt's report is ready to use for this next clinical encounter. And we did that intentionally. At first we thought about why would we send it to the patient, not just the doctor. So it goes to both, and we think that's important too because again, we want to enable the patient to participate in the shared decision-making process about them. We've all heard, my doctor just gives me a pill. They don't listen to me. I don't know what's going on. So we wanted to really, set it up where that patient has some background coming into the conversation about what's going on with my risk factors. The doctor has enough, information ahead of time, having looked at the report before, understands the format, understands how to navigate. And that way that short clinical primary care visit then can directly be, here's where you're at. Let's talk about what we're doing.
I love it. So for the listeners, I mean, we had the opportunity to look at what a sample report looks like. And as I mentioned offline to you, it's extremely comprehensive and it's digestible, which is what I love about it. So do the patients have an opportunity to see that before their initial visit, the data, or is that only until they meet the physician, then the physician can present that data to them? Because technically the patient's data, so they should have access to it.
Absolutely. And that was, again, for me as the patient side of our team, was let's make this available to patients. So the patient does get the report as soon as we produce it. The patient gets access to the report, as does the doctor. Because you're right, it's their data, it's their report, it's their health, it's their life. Let's enable them to be part of the conversation from the get-go rather than showing up. Because again, in that short period of time, it would take, a lot of time for that conversation to start with, hey, here's this report, here's what the report's laid out, here's what you're looking at. Whereas the patient comes in, already has some familiarity with what they're looking at, really helps guide that conversation to meaningful discussions about what are we going to do now.
Yeah, and I'm sure at this point, some clinicians are thinking, well, that could be a real problem. Like, for instance, what's different, and again, I have had the cheat sheet where I've had the opportunity to look at it, so I know this is, it actually explains it, like what those things actually mean, right? Like all the things that you talked about, lipoprotein little a, right? ApoB, what that means in the context of your family history, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So unlike a lot of the other places and a lot of the other systems where you just get some labs and you get a message, hey, your labs are up, there's no context for what that means, right? You might see some reference values that this is high, this is low, right? Hemoglobin A1C is high, but what does that mean? I don't know. And then, well, what are they left to do, right? You got to get on Google. And Google can be a really scary place. I tell my patients, you have to really know where to look. And so that context, we've said over and over again, it wasn't said by us first, by somebody else. Context over context is very, very important. So that context is key. And something that we wanted to ask you a little bit later on, we think about the current and future of precision medicine and just cardiometabolic health and et cetera. Something I've spent a lot of time lately thinking about is how patients need to be greater advocates for themselves. And when it comes to diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all these chronic illnesses, where our system is, for lack of a better word, challenged to optimally provide care, right? No such thing, or not really set up for preventative or long-term health. Patients have to kind of take matters into their own hands, so to speak, such as you did. And so is it always the case that you would need a provider to order this test for you, or is this available to patients to get on their own just as they're more interested in learning about their health?
Yeah, so we started with this being a tool only for clinicians. We wanted this to be only available to docs to prescribe, order it, and that's great. Until we fairly quickly realized there are people. I refer to this as what I call weirdos like me, who don't see a primary care physician regularly, but still want to be healthy and understand what's going on with their risk for disease. And so we built an option on our website that individuals can come order for themselves, go through the same process, they get the results. We'll gladly send it to their primary care physician or their cardiologist or whoever they'd like to send it to. Or they can take it, understand it, use it, and then go from there. So we made it available to those people because what we didn't want to have is someone who wants to understand what's going on with their health be hamstrung because we have not contracted with their doctor yet. That's a system problem on our side that would interfere with that individual being able to optimize their health. And so we very quickly enabled it where it's built for a clinical shared decision-making conversation, but it also works for, an individual who's interested in learning about their health. As you said, they can download it. There's information about what is insulin resistance and why is LPIR a good biomarker for that. And there's links where they can go read more on content that my co-founder, again, highly seasoned lipidologist, really understands how these things interact with your body, and keeps people from going to Dr. Google for advice.
Yeah. Matt, it's honestly great to hear because I recently saw my PCP last year, and being a podcaster, having guests like you, Nicole Harkin, other cardiologists, understanding LP(a), ApoB, all these other things, and trying to get those ordered was just a headache. The first thing says that, well, there's no indication, or I don't really know what that is. And it's tough, of course, for people in our field as physicians or clinicians to admit that they might not know something. So then they kind of circumduct around that question saying, I don't really think you need it at this time or something. So I love the idea that it can be a business to consumer idea with precision health reports. And I can finally just go and order that. And, if everything's already there for what I need to learn, great. Because honestly, the more and more I look on social media, I'm finding consumers are sometimes more knowledgeable than clinicians when it comes to these things because there's just so much information out there. So I guess my question to you too is, when you're looking to bring on clinicians to support precision health reports and use that for their patients, is there a baseline knowledge that you're looking at in order for a clinician to kind of be on board, or how is that education happening?
Yeah, honestly, our goal is to get this into physicians' hands, and if there's an opportunity to educate them, we're happy to do it. I'm my part of the conversations often, here's how to order, here's generally how the workflow works. But my co-founder, he's an adjunct professor at Wake Forest University, and and likes to talk about this stuff. He's given jillions of speeches and lectures and talks about the various nuances and the 9 and 10 and 12 syllable words that come along with practicing lipidology, and he really grooves on educating physicians about the complexities of cardiometabolic disease. He got into this space because he was, a scientist and said, what makes people unhealthy and what kills them? Cardiometabolic disease. Okay, that's what I want to do. So that was his reason for getting into the space as a lipidologist. And so he really enjoys educating a primary care physician, because we believe that the more this, again, can be moved earlier in the care continuum, that primary care physician who may not be as familiar with the complexities of lipid stuff, they're able to get their hands on this, understand what they're talking about, and have that conversation with their patient. We all win when the health system works efficiently like that. So we're glad to educate and help primary care physicians operate at the top of their license, and maybe a lot of docs geek out on talking about things or learning about things they didn't know about before. So we really get excited about the opportunity to educate on some of these complex topics.
For sure. I mean, there's some third-party labs kind of around me in a physical location where you can go and draw individual labs, but then it gets tricky, right? Because you have to look at it from an individual price point. And then, of course, there's some reports already out there, more like in the functional medicine world and GI and Dutch tests and things. But then a lot of people get confused. Is it unnecessary? What exactly does it tell me? So a lot of the things that you're talking about on Precision Health Report, are data backed. There are things where science is actually doing the research. We all listen to the Peter Attia podcast, and this is things that he kind of nerds out on and really has great episodes on. So, these are things that we're looking at and that the medical system slowly catching up on. So to me, it makes it so much easier to think about that I can go and get this report and start actually making lifestyle changes for that. I guess my other question to you then is, are you guys only looking at like outpatient practices, or is there a role for this also within the inpatient side of medicine or within traditional hospital systems?
We haven't approached any inpatient type scenarios yet. There probably is a place for it. Haven't really fleshed that out very far. So it's possible, but we're really focused on getting this early in that disease cycle. Again, talking about my own health a little bit. I was 45 years old and I started kind of going down some of this pathway, and my CAC score is 0, which clean bill of health, fantastic. Although I also did it because I had the opportunity. I did a CIMT of the carotid artery, and there's early plaque there. So that clean bill of health, after all, wasn't as clean as expected because the CIMT was able to pick up soft plaque. And so that indicated that, here I am, 45 years old. I've got vascular disease. Need to start working on things more aggressively. So my first reaction was, well, I don't want to take a statin. I want to, I'll just handle it with diet and lifestyle. And then after about 6 months, I realized, I'm like, you're taking creatine in the mornings because you work out. You're taking this supplement here and there. Why aren't you taking a statin and using that as a supplement to help your cardiovascular health and reducing that progression of vascular disease into potentially something worse? And so, and I felt like I'm an example of regular person out there who needs to find disease earlier. So we're really focused on that primary care space. We do have cardiologists that use our product. We've got some endocrinologists and lipidologists, but we really find our sweet spot is in that, where patients are.
Matt, can I ask you, so you brought up a really good point about taking a statin when at first you were probably against it. And I think there's so many of us, especially in the health realm, that think of it that way, that I'm going to do it the natural, quote unquote, natural way. And I'm not going to need something like a medication to help me out, even though I may need it, even though my numbers really aren't moving. I refuse to do it. How did you think about that process? What was that conversation that you had with yourself to get you being okay with trying out a statin?
Sure. I spend a lot of time again, I used the ketogenic diet to, drop from, 236 pounds to 190 pounds in a year. So ketogenic intermittent fasting. So of course you get into the ketogenic, threads on Twitter and elsewhere. You start attending low carb conferences. You get kind of wrapped into that. And there's a lot of good information, and there's a lot of other information in those circles that make you take pause about, what is the effect of some of these interventions. And so, for me, my first reaction was, I'm not doing it. I've read all these things about it. You have family members who take a statin and their legs hurt or whatever. And so, I've got to, for me, going to the gym is that's my sacred hour every day. And my first thought was, man, I'm going to take a statin and my legs are going to hurt. I'm not going to want to work out. I'm not doing it. I'll just keep, it's just soft plaque. It's fine. And for me, it became, it became a function of, again, I'm taking other supplements for other things. In the wintertime during COVID, we were all kind of supplementing with vitamin D because, it's like, hey, we're not getting enough sun. Let's, add some vitamin D to the stack. So it really just became a matter of, I'm doing all these things to stay healthy and maximize my health span. Why not take a low dose rosuvastatin and go with it? So I did. It's been a year and a half, and I'm fine. My numbers have come down further into the acceptable range. Haven't gotten a CIMT yet, again, because it hasn't been several years, and so there's really no reason to get it so quickly thereafter. But at the same time, my co-founder uses the phrase often. He'll tell you, think about 10 years from now, what a great day looks like. Just think about it in your head. And then think about it if you had a stroke between now and then, what a great day is going to feel like, or you've had a heart attack in that window. A stroke or a heart attack is a game changer. All those interventions that you're putting off, you're going to have to do anyway if one of those things happens. So why not do those things, feel good about it now, and avoid the event that interferes with that quality of life that you expect to have 10 years from now.
I mean, there's so much good stuff that you said there that's worth unpacking. I think, so Darsh and I, we see a lot of people with musculoskeletal ailments, myself particularly, right? I'm PM&R, sports medicine trained. And so somebody's coming to me for pain, usually, maybe from function issues, but primarily pain. And of course, most people, unless you have a rare genetic disorder, will experience pain at a young age. And we know when pain limits our function, what that disability means. And so we're very quick to address that issue, right? I've been having this conversation a lot with my patients where they're like, I want to get out of pain. And I ask them, well, why? Well, that's not really the goal. The goal is to be able to play golf, right? So if your knee doesn't hurt, you want to be able to play golf or play with the kids, etc. So what that awesome day would look like 10 years from now if you weren't in pain. But we can see that, right? We tend to be very short-sighted. And sometimes we knock on the younger generation folks in their 20s that they don't have the foresight what their life is going to look like, what their health is going to look like 20, 30 years from now. But I think the fact of the matter is people even in their 30s and 40s and 50s, they don't really have the foresight what 10 years from now what disability looks like. Unless it's because of knee osteoarthritis or something, because they can kind of experience that on a day-to-day. I recently had a patient who, again, came to me for knee pain bilaterally, and is not able to do the things that he wants to do, but hadn't seen a doctor. Now, this is a firefighter, and hadn't seen a doctor for 15 years. And I remember telling him, well, you need to see somebody because we have no idea what your kidneys are functioning like. We have no idea what your heart health is like. And all those things that I'm talking about getting addressed, when they present with symptoms, it could be it, right? Like it presents a heart attack as a stroke or something like that. Your pain that you're presenting me with, like, that's not going to kill you. Sure, it's affecting your function, causing some disability, but all those other things are a real problem. And so I just find this myself having this conversation over and over and over again. I don't know what's special about the people who do have that foresight of what 20, 30 years from now looks like. And I mean, even in your case, right? You mentioned it was a close family member who passed, and that was kind of a wake-up call, right? And so it's a really tough problem to encounter as a clinician, as somebody who's passionate about their own personal longevity, but also the health of their patients. And I don't really know what the solution is, but I do love that what Darsh talked about in terms of how you guys have this comprehensive bundle. I suppose the question or the thing worth addressing for some people would be I mean, nowadays people listen to podcasts and they hail all kinds of different platforms, right? places they can get their labs drawn. I'm looking at something else right now, I won't mention the name, but where they can get a comprehensive panel, and I'm kind of just looking at their prices. And I suppose somebody would want to know, well, what's special about Precision Health Reports and why should they opt to go with that? So put your sales hat on and give me an answer.
Yeah, for sure. We were very specific in the biomarkers we use. One of the things that my co-founder really believes, kind of one of his core tenets is, use the fewest amount of biomarkers that are the most informative to get to the answer. If I draw 3 different ways to measure your insulin resistance, which one do you trust? Well, I trust in his LPIR. Okay, well, why draw the other 2 then? It's just going to give you a wrong answer. So we were very, very direct in making sure that our assessment had the fewest number of biomarkers that were the most predictive and the most proven set that would not cause confusion. And then with that, taking, again, just those lab numbers and bringing them together to make them about you. So the 3 of us are going to have different targets for our ApoB number. We'll have the same target for LPIR. You want to get your insulin resistance, as insulin sensitive as possible. But through us, we make it an affordable price, and so we don't have some sort of outrageous, go cobble a bunch of labs together to get a report. But we get that fewest number of most predictive labs that give you a picture of what's going on with you and your health, and allow you to make very clear decisions. And those numbers we give you, they're not numbers we've made up. We don't try to have some sort of, here's your heart health age, or here's your diabetes in context of everyone else in the country. We give it's really about you. You don't care about average numbers, and you don't need us making up a heart health age. We give you, here's your risk for where you are. Here's where your target should be for your lipoprotein management score. Here's where your metabolic syndrome should be. Here's where insulin resistance should be. Measure yourself to things about you, and then whether directly as an individual or through your clinician, work to hitting those targets that are specific to your health.
And so if individuals were to approach this themselves and take matters into their own hands, how often, I know you're not a physician and we're not giving any medical advice, nor are we giving any recommendations here, so just to make that clear, but how often could one, I suppose they could get it as many times, but let's just say, do you do it yourself, and how often do you check your own stuff if you're making some tweaks? Every 6 months, every 4 months, as you said before, or what?
Yeah, so I put myself on a 6-month schedule. For me, it was, okay. My numbers were in a pretty good place. I've got a little bit of plaque. Check in on it. Okay, by taking a low dose rosuvastatin, continuing a lower carb, higher protein diet has worked for me. I exercise pretty intensely every day, so my numbers got into an acceptable range. My risk scores are okay. Because I already have plaque, I'm always going to be high risk for cardiovascular disease, just because once the process is started, that keeps me at a high risk. But I'm a managed high risk, and so I just want to check back in every 6 months, make sure that in my case, I measure LDLP just because that's where I started. So I just want to keep that continuum going of that, but of that common biomarker. But as long as I'm on track, that's a good enough number for me. So I'm happy with where I am. So 6 months is a good window.
So obviously we know plaque can start even in the teenage years, maybe in a little bit earlier at that point. Is there a specific age that you recommend getting started with Precision Health Reports? Is it optimized specifically for an age group?
So we go off what the guidelines say. And the guidelines don't have any sort of risk categories for people below the age of 18. The recommendations for imaging, CIMT typically is no younger than 29. A CAC score, typically, mid 40s is about the earliest that you can get a CAC score that makes any difference. And so, those people in that, as early as possible, you start kind of thinking about things. When you're in your 20s, ASCVD is somebody else's problem. That's your mom and dad's problem. That's not my problem. Yeah. Maybe in your 30s, you're starting to think about it a little bit. But, once you start, thinking about health, it's mid 30s is a good time to check in, make sure you're on track, start getting aware of what biomarkers and what things affect you as you get into those 30s and 40s when things start to hurt and you don't know why. Being ahead of the ball is a good kind of a good window. And then, the way that ASCVD, risk measurement happens, I said earlier, younger people only get a lifetime risk because there's not enough data to show what your 10-year risk is when you're 30. And then you get that middle range where you both get a lifetime risk and a 10-year risk. And then the older people, once you get 60 and older, you only get a 10-year risk. And effectively what you're doing is moving that 10-year risk further and further down the line. So when you're 90 years old, you still have, and you end up with a 3% risk of having an event in the next 10 years, you've won. You've extended your health span and punted that risk further and further down the timeline.
Yeah, and I guess people can take the data too and use the Snyderman 30-year risk and calculate that online to see, whether 30, 40 years old, kind of down the line, how they're looking. Awesome. Ultimash, did you have any other questions for about precision health reports? I was interested in Matt's kind of current regimen too, in terms of how he got his markers down and stuff.
Oh my God. No, I was going to ask him. I want to know about. I know you mentioned low carb diet, but I'm more curious of like what you mentioned ketogenic, you mentioned fasting. Give me a day in the life of what your diet's like now.
Yeah. So where I am now, I use keto to get the weight off. It was a fantastic tool for that. I liked it, but I could see it was pushing my lipoprotein values a little higher than I liked. And so I shifted to more of a low carb. So when I was at keto, it was 20 grams of carbs a day or less. I mean, and to the point where, I'm going to take this pickle off of this bunless burger because I'm going to pick up, that saves me 2 carbs. And so I was that regimented to the point my parents thought I was really lost my mind, choosing mustard over mayonnaise and, weird things you would choose just to stay under that 20 grams of carbohydrates a day, doing the typical, doing the breath thing to check your ketone levels. Once I hit a target weight, I really shifted back into, for, probably 6 days a week, I was in a 16-8 intermittent fasting schedule, shifted my carb level up into the 60s, maybe 70 grams a day, really trying to optimize for protein. I believe that, and you guys have said it before, we're an under-proteined population. And Peter Attia has mentioned several times, protein is not a percentage target, it is a numbers target. And so for me, I try to shoot for about 160 grams a day. Most days I end up 120, 150. I don't track it actively, but having tracked it pretty religiously for about 2 years early on, you understand what foods hit your goals. And some days you're just full. There's no reason to eat when you're full, just to hit a number. And so nowadays, a little heavier in the gym as far as my lifting regimen. Trying to hit some targets I want to hit. My goal for the year is 1,000 pounds within an hour of 1 rep bench press, one rep squat, and 1 rep deadlift. So I'm about 60 pounds short still, but within this year, I want to get there. And so what I'll often do when I get home from the gym, particularly on a heavy day, is I'll get some protein on board pretty quick. I don't know if protein timing really matters, but there's no reason not to. If you're a little hungry and you want to feed the muscles, give them what they need. So it really, my targets are 160 grams of protein, less than 75 grams of carbs is really a cap for me. And then, making sure I get that hour plus in the gym, not because everyone needs an hour at the gym. I just like it. I like the way I feel doing it. I have to kind of balance myself a little bit. I'm, being 46 years old, I'm, have to worry a little bit about overtraining. And I'm prone to do that just because I enjoy it so much. So it's kind of how I stay where I'm at. And I've got my LDLP numbers down. I think at last I checked, I was like at 750 or so. So, I'm down well in the range where I want to be. And, as knock on wood, as far as I know, the plaque progression process is drastically slowed or stopped.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Matt, this has been really awesome. I mean, I love this. Like I said, I'm more excited to kind of learn more about it and maybe even kind of use it to see what it looks like, what my numbers look like. I agree with you, Darsh. I think that I've been interested. I think I've told people before in another life, if I had to go down the medicine pathway, I think cardio would be the path for me. I don't know if 6 years of training, it sounds appealing at all, but it is certainly interesting. It's worthwhile. It's information that I think it's important for every single person to know, right? Some of the tests that we mentioned, everybody should have done. I'm interested. You said that the guidelines, 18 years of age, right? Below that, we can't really risk stratify. I remember Dr. Harkin, Nicole Harkin, shout out to her. She mentioned that even, I think once during pediatrics, like pediatricians should be ordering a total cholesterol panel. So I'm wondering do you have any clients who are pediatricians who are using this? Is that available? Do you know?
We do not. I want to say it's the ACC or the ESC guidelines, the American College of Cardiology or the European Society of Cardiology. Their guidelines kind of stop at 18 for their typical guidelines.
Yeah.
So we try to stay, very guideline focused, so we don't go deeper. Now I will tell you, with someone with FH, familial hypercholesterolemia, that's a place where if a person has it, obviously checking their children as soon as possible and starting to think about that makes a lot of sense. Some of the genetic conditions that affect cardiovascular risk, that's a good place to start earlier. But again, only from what I read, not having any sort of clinical experience there, and we don't have any pediatric physicians using our product at present.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to know what's kind of next on the agenda. As we spoke about, you guys, so 2020 was the inception of the company, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So, this has really developed into something very, very cool. But I'm sure you talked about trying to get it and make it more accessible to more clinicians. But anything else? Have you guys thought about expanding it, like in terms of allowing more biomarkers, or I'm sure those kinds of conversations are being had. What can you share with us that people could be excited about with Precision Health Reports, and really anything precision medicine, cardiometabolic health in your opinion?
Yeah. We're always talking about what's next, and we always believe. Again, I had some great mentors in a previous business at TrialCard. Would always listen to what your customers tell you. They'll tell you what they want, what helps them do their jobs better. So it doesn't really matter what we want to do; it's what your customers want. And so with us, an area we're getting a lot of focus, we're spending a lot of time in, and have got a lot of traction, is working with police departments. Law enforcement officers, first responders have drastically outsized risk for cardiometabolic diseases, particularly cops. Your cops, 50% of police officers will have a heart attack or stroke within 5 years of retirement or sooner. Why? Because their diet's not very good, because they're always eating it at different times. Their sleep schedule's off. Their stress moves around. Some cops will tell you, some won't. They spend a lot of time in the patrol car, in the seat, in a sedentary-ish position. So they're at much higher risk. And so we've partnered with some police departments directly, and with a company called Performance Protocol that partners with Axon, the company that makes body cams and tasers. They're their coaching division, and they've implemented our assessment as part of their police performance program. And so we're spending a good amount of time finding ways to support them and helping officers in police departments and municipalities find disease earlier, cut down on their healthcare spend, and have healthier officers. Healthier officers are better officers at what they do, and we all need. When we need our police force, we need them optimally trained and optimally performing. So that's a big focus area for us. With clinical stuff, we've been very, very concise in our biomarker set. We have had some physicians pop back up and say, I love the tight group, and I understand why. Is there any way I could get an extra biomarker here or there? And so We're right in the middle of that right now with a couple different customers. We're testing the process. It's really just a process thing on our side. We can add additional biomarkers as we go for them. So we're glad to do it. And again, part of what we want to be is an enabler of clinical decisions. You know, I believe that my co-founder is a fantastic doctor. My role in this whole thing we do is to enable better doctoring with technology without getting in the way. And so, you know, I go to health conferences, and you end up at some of these larger health conferences, and they're very focused on interoperability and data sharing and data structures and stuff. You know, that kind of happens in the background, but that shouldn't be our primary focus. Our primary focus is being an enabler to help doctors do the practice of medicine and get there. So we're continuing to listen, continuing to learn, whether it's current clinicians we work with, whether it's other docs who we don't work with yet, who might be interested, or it's just docs in general. I mean, we crave feedback on, you know, how can this help me help my patients optimize their health span? You know, I've experienced it personally. Some of my own family members have used our assessments. My wife, you know, through our assessment, she identified that she has familial hypercholesterolemia. So she's an FH person, 45 years old, and didn't know it until she went through our process, started talking with her doctor about what they were finding, you know, did the Dutch lipid test to figure out, I've got FH. Okay, well, good. We'll manage you differently now. Fantastic. And she's having great success with that. My father, 71 years old, average guy, used our assessment and found out that he needed to take care of some things. And so, you know, seeing the impact it's having on people I know personally and the feedback we're getting from doctors keeps us motivated to keep listening for, you know, what do we need to do, whether it's more biomarkers, whether it's another kind of diagnostic test. I mean, cardiovascular disease and cardiometabolic disease are a pretty large problem. So we don't necessarily have to move into other disease states, but, you know, if there's a need for us to get there, you know, we're open to making it happen, and again, empowering that clinical process and giving you and your patients better use of the time that you've got together.
Love that, man. I mean, a lot of exciting things on the horizon. We listened to your episode, I believe it's called the Co-Optimizer podcast. So we can, about the police department, and, you know, those stats, I feel like I knew, but I never really realized it until I listened to that episode. So staggering stats, we'll definitely link that podcast in our show notes as well. You know, anytime Altamash and I have the opportunity to talk to a non-clinician, right? I mean, you talked about your role, how important that is. Oftentimes you come in with a different vantage point than us clinicians do, right? I mean, a lot of times we're siloed and we kind of get blinded by what we see in the hospitals and the clinics. So I do want to ask, what is something, you know, when we talk about the future of precision medicine, or maybe the current state, what is something that most people are not thinking about when it comes to precision medicine, about what it can do, or maybe where it might go?
Yeah, I would say, you know, this might be sort of an answer, might not be. But I think a lot of it has to do with helping a person hit the goals they have. And as an individual, sometimes you have to step back from all the things going on in your life and identify what you want your health to be. And there's, you know, more and more precision medicine tools now to help you get there. So, you know, honestly, I think precision medicine really becomes a better way for individuals to partner with their care teams and clinicians to get where they want to be health-wise. Yeah, it's probably as succinctly as I can get it, but it's really about, you know, enabling people to maximize that health span and hit the goals they want to hit, and understanding what's going on. You know, the better we as individual people understand health, and particularly our own health, the better quality of life we're going to have, and start turning around those numbers. And, you know, it'd be fantastic for cardiovascular disease not to be the number one cause of death in our country, but we're far from that. But we got to start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere, man. And you guys are making it easier for people to start. So, Matt, thank you for the good work. Thanks for coming on. Truly enjoyed this discussion and learning about your company and more about what it is that you guys are doing. You know, last but not least, certainly you were expecting this question that's coming at you, is, you know, the kind of things that we get excited about is adding the health back to healthcare, right? It's not currently how we practice. It's how we want to practice. And a lot of people share that passion with us. So in your opinion, how is it that we can do that? How do we add the health back to healthcare?
I think the biggest way to add health back to healthcare is continue to listen. Again, I think more and more doctors, particularly young docs like yourself, aren't, as my co-founder would say, you're not set in your ways yet. And so you're more adept at listening to patients and understanding where they're trying to get. There's always the opinion out there that, docs are just writing prescriptions because that's what they do. And I know personally that's not the case. And so continue to listen, continue to meet people where they are, understand what their limitations are, and adapt to the individual. A great example that I've seen with my co-founder, he's talking to the patient who he said, you need to get more high intensity exercise. And she's like, I just physically can't. Okay, what's the deal? I can't get off the couch, or it's just hard to get off the couch. She's, okay, can you flap your arms? Sure. Okay, let's flap our arms together. So he's on a Zoom call with a patient and they're flapping their arms together. So it's meeting the patient where they are, continuing to do that. I think that's become a more common norm in the last several years, and I think it's a norm that will continue to evolve of docs meeting patients where they are, and I think that improves our population health, and more importantly, it improves each individual's health in the process too.
Yeah, that concept of meeting people where they are comes up time and time again, and if nothing else, it just should highlight how important it is. So, thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
An important update before you take off, we are now publishing episodes every other Monday. This will allow you to take your time listening to an episode, implement the lifestyle techniques you've learned, and solidify your knowledge with our newsletter. We thank you for your support of this podcast. If this episode speaks to you, please consider sharing it with your friends and family. We would also greatly appreciate it if you leave a rating and review. We would like to thank our team, Ethan Ju on video, Haritha Yapuri on graphics, Zainab Lugmani on research, and Sarah Khan on newsletter. And as always, our disclaimer. Everything in this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of medicine, and we are not providing medical advice. No physician-patient relationship is formed, and anything discussed in this podcast does not represent the views of our employers. We recommend that you seek the guidance of your personal physician regarding any specific health-related issues. Once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next episode.